Hello and welcome again to Module 4, but Lesson 4, where we talk all about data in your flipped classroom. So in this lesson, I'll give you a reminder of those data points you want to be collecting in your flipped classroom, and then diving into how you can best organize that data to make it easy to use. Let me get one thing straight. Back in my pre-children work 60 plus hours a week and never feel the effects days, I organize data simply to organize data. It's what I lived for. Nowadays, if I don't see a direct, immediate benefit, I'm not doing it. I'll repeat that. I'm not organizing data unless there is an immediate benefit to my students in me doing so. So in this lesson, I hope to give you some simple pointers on how to organize the data in a way that makes it quickly usable so it can truly impact and benefit your students. So in this lesson, I will be reminding you of data you're collecting in your flipped classroom, and then ways to collect it and ways to organize and use it. So let's get to it. In a future lesson, we will talk about student reflection and the procedures and processes you can implement in your classroom to make sure student reflection a natural and effective habit of your students. But first, I want to give you a piece of advice. I want to let you know that here, because it's important to realize that some data put into the hands of students can be very effective in ways that impact more than just the class they are taking with you. Not all data will benefit them if they know about it, but here's my advice. Some will, and we'll hash that out later in Module 5. For now, I want you to focus on the data points you want to be collecting as a way to gauge students' effort and performance. Now, the way you keep things organized in your class is going to be different depending on the platforms your building, district, or county uses. So I will try to keep these big picture for you while also giving recommendations on how to do it and with what tools. First, let's remind ourselves of the data points you are collecting, remembering that each of these data points are informing your instruction and the conversations with individual students. The first data point is whether or not students watched the video and other details like when and how long it took them to watch it. This can be very specifically tracked in tools like PlayPosit or Edpuzzle, which we talked about in the last lesson. The second data point is students' retention levels immediately after they watch the videos. So this is also built into tools like PlayPosit or can be built with a Google form. Finally, you want to know about students' retention levels periodically leading up to the unit tests that are a bit more removed than immediately after a video. In my class, as I've told you in the last lesson, those were called topic quizzes, which we did approximately once to twice per week. They were short quizzes, but effective, engaging student understanding after a couple of days of working with a topic, both outside and inside of class. One that I didn't mention in the last lesson, because it's less informative, are the unit tests. To be honest, I believe that every form of assessment is informative. Even my students from this school year are informing my instruction for next year. So every assessment a student takes is informative. But I classify this one, the unit tests, a bit differently because it's a bit more final for students. With that being said, I still collected, organized, and tracked that data point. So let's get to the meat of this lesson. In my mind, there really are two ways you can go about collecting these data points, and I would encourage you to consider both and determine what will work best for you in a way that is not time-consuming and effective. The first option is using your school's online gradebook system. We used Progress Book in my school, but something tells me that if you've used one, you've used them all. Although my experience is with one tool, my recommendation is not specific to any one tool. You already do this, but I think you can be a bit more intentional depending on how specific you get in your gradebook with the categories of grades. So what I mean is you probably already have those categories, but I'm going to recommend some ways to be more intentional with them. For instance, when putting grades in your online gradebook, do you have a category for formative assessments versus summative assessments, or even topic quizzes and unit tests? Or how about classwork or participation grades? I'm hoping you're nodding right now, like, of course I do. Maybe you don't have each one of those, but a compilation of some of them. Well, let's talk about ways to use that to your advantage and to be intentional. It would be so easy to set up in your grade book the types of grades or categories so that when you go to input a formative assessment or a topic quiz, you can select that category so that when you want to look at where a student is missing a step in your class, you can pull up how he or she is doing on note taking, retaining the notes, and retaining info leading up to the topic quizzes. Those reports would be super easy to click a few buttons and bam, have at your fingertips to have conversations around. Now, this also depends on how much you want to be putting on your online gradebook. For instance, I wouldn't want to be putting on my gradebook whether or not a student watched a video for every single video of my class. If anyone finds a way to push one button to make that happen, please let me know. And that's why I recommend using both your online gradebook and this next option, which is to DIY it with spreadsheets. Anything that you are taking for a grade that does not change, meaning no retakes or corrections, you should just use your gradebook. There's no sense in remaking the wheel here. You're already putting that data in that spot, use it. However, and I want you to hear me on this, if you offer retakes or corrections, you should track the original score somewhere. But what about the data points outside of what you're putting in your gradebook? Like if students watch the video and their formative assessments they take at home, and so you don't give them a grade and don't put them in the gradebook. Those you'll want to track elsewhere. And this is why I preferred using Google Forms as a quiz. It makes the spreadsheet for me. Now, granted, I don't know how long it took them to watch the video, and the questions were just at the end, not embedded within the video, but the automatic data it generated worked best for me. So let's consider that flow of student experience to data. A student of your class is going to go to your Google site and watch your video, taking notes as they watch. Then they will click the link under your video or see the embedded form to take a quiz that is a Google form. This results in 2 data points. One being the notes you are stamping. Believe it or not, the student's binder grade is a data point. It lets you know, shy of watching the videos with them, that they watched the video and gave effort to their note taking. The next data point being the beautiful spreadsheet that is created once your students take the Google form quiz. That means you'll have one spreadsheet for every formative assessment you give. And here's a way to hold them accountable for that. They don't get a stamp unless they've completed that Google form. Or maybe you give 2 stamps, one for the video, one for the Google form. Now, I don't know about you, but having all that data in multiple spreadsheets in multiple places makes me crazy. I want to have one spot where the data is collected from those formative assessments. Again, this is the beauty in using Google quizzes that makes a spreadsheet for you. So as students are taking quizzes, every single quiz makes its own spreadsheet, one after the other after the other. That's so many places. But what if you had one spot to quickly, just with a few clicks, put all of that? I give to you the Flipped Classroom Formative Data Master Spreadsheet. In your PDF guide of this lesson, you have access to this bad boy where I've done most of the organizing for you. Let me get in there and show you. I selected colors just to better help you visually, but feel free to change those if you aren't feeling the pink or any other color, and you just select and go to the little paint bucket to change those. So here's what you'll need to do once the school year starts and data starts flowing in. First, you'll want to make one tab for each of the bells you'll be teaching of this flipped course. You'll click on the arrow in that first tab and click Duplicate. Then click the same arrow to rename it according to your bell schedule. So here's Duplicate, and then here's Rename. Then put your students' names in this first column over to the left. And you'll do that for each of your bells. You can do that just by copying and pasting from your gradebook roster. Then as students are taking quizzes, you can simply highlight and copy the column of scores, then paste them to the spreadsheet. So you'll click in that first spot there and click Control V to paste, and it'll go down the row. The beauty of this spreadsheet is that the formulas are already put in for you to make the data truly formative. You'll see these weird looking formulas, the numbers and letters here. That is a formula I put in that column that will average each student's formative scores per unit. So if you scroll down here, you'll see them down here. That's because I gave for you in the first unit, that first formative assessment, this will calculate the average for you. And then these numbers here, these average columns, will calculate for you the average for that student in that unit. Be sure to watch the video in our tech library on how to use this spreadsheet throughout the year, like when you need to add a student or more columns. Another quick note. If you want to put the unit tests in this spreadsheet as well, you can totally do that. But that's entirely up to you and the system you are building. In my class, I made a separate spreadsheet for the unit tests where I kept student and test averages as well as used conditional formatting with the lovely colors so I could quickly see how well a student was processing in the class. And I want to provide that for you as well. The formulas and conditional formatting is all there for you. Just find it in the PDF guide of this lesson and make it your own. Keep in mind, you won't see all these pretty colors just yet because you won't have any data in the spreadsheet. Feel free to test it out by throwing in some numbers in there. And remember to watch the tutorial on how to conditionally format your data so you can edit the conditions that make the colors and how to make it work best for you. Again, you can find that in our tech library. And there you have it, my friends. That concludes lesson 4, where we talked all about data and organizing it in a way that impacts your students without taking up your entire day to make it useful. The take action now pieces for this module or for this lesson is to decide how you'll organize that data between your grade book and DIYing it with your spreadsheets, and then grab those templates and make them yours. And that's a wrap for module 4. Remember that next week is our second work on the work weeks. And after that, we'll be rolling out module 5. And that's where we'll talk all about what in the world to do in class now that it's flipped. And I can't wait for that. And we'll see you there soon.